Hello, everyone. I'm excited today to bring you Jeff Dudan. He is the CEO of Homefront Brands. It's one of the fastest growing property service franchises here in the country. Welcome to the show, Jeff.
Ryan, excited to be on.
Awesome. So, for people who don't know you, let's get kind of your 30-second to a minute background and how'd you get here?
Okay, the earth cooled, a lot of things happened, and then I started a restoration business in 1994. I cut my teeth in Hurricane Andrew in 92. Built a restoration business over 24 years and 11 months. The first 15 years were kind of a direct service business, doing disaster response, government contracting. We were working nationally and internationally, and then decided to franchise the business really in 2006. Refranchised our locations in 2006, 7, and 8. What that means for the audience is basically we had company stores that we sold as operating franchise units.
Yep.
Allowed that to cut our teeth in dealing with franchisees, support, kind of refine our systems. We were early to centralization, man. Like we had a Salesforce instance, we bent it to our will. We had a call center. So we were really, we took the technology as it emerged and we centralized things. And then I franchised it in 2009 to the general public and sold it January 1st, 2019 with about 240 operating locations.
Okay. And what was the name of that brand again?
Advanticlean.
That was Advanced. Yep. And who'd you sell it? Who'd you sell it to?
Home Franchise Concepts out of Irvine, California, parent company of Budget Blinds.
Yep. Okay. So you build this big, and was that the only brand you had kind of through that whole period?
It was. I participated in some other brands, mainly in a minority or advisory capacity, and but yeah, that was the main business. We did have two businesses that went with it. We kept our direct business that we had built as the predecessor company,
Okay.
and we used it as our national accounts business. So we still, in acquiring customers that our franchisees couldn't, like the federal government, we had the
Okay.
experience rating, we had
Yep.
the GSA schedule, so we had the contract. So we used that business as kind of a conduit. We sacrificed that business in favor of the franchise business, though, because one of the things, especially in restoration, there's many examples of it. You never want to compete with your franchisees. You have to be franchisee centric. Any decision has to fall on their side of the ledger in their best interests. And there's many cases throughout history where people try to get a little more market share, and you end up competing with your franchisees, and that never ends up well.
Yep. So why did you decide to sell it? Like, what was the point then? You said, "Hey, it's time to move on."
Great question. I know that in your background, you have a very significant franchisee business, and you were in business with family. And at some point, you decided to buy your father out.
Yep.
And I can only assume, based on how your age and his age, that he was probably ready to
Yep.
either do something different or take a little time off the table or whatever it was. And it was kind of the same for me. So I had been self-employed really since college. Started a college painting business, and I was almost 50. And if I hadn't gotten a bigger room, I probably would have never found the courage and the motivation to see what it looked like after selling a business. So I probably would have hung on to it. But I felt like I had taken the business as to a great place. I was 50 years old, and I said, if I'm going to do something different, whatever that is, then now would be the time. Multiples were high. We were one of the few quality assets left in the property service at that time because private equity had done a lot of roll-ups. So there was just a lot of pressure, inbound pressure and inbound interest to sell. And then I figured, if I'm 50, I can figure out what's next and have enough left in the tank to do something else if I chose to do it. So that was really the motivator. And it just felt like the right timing. But again, I didn't have the optics to what that might look like until I got in things like YPO, Young Presidents Organization, and you start getting in these forums, and everybody in there has sold the business, and they can tell you what it looks like afterwards. So you're getting that perspective from other people was equally as important as the timing being right for me and my family.
And that was 2019.
Yes, sir.
Yep. So after you sell it, I guess what was one of the biggest surprises of things like you thought it was going to be a certain way, but then it was not that?
One for me personally, and it's probably different for a lot of people, but I realized that I wasn't financially motivated.
Yep.
And that was, and I probably needed to be more financially motivated than I was.
Post sale or
Um,
during the sale?
I think after the sale, there's this moment in time when you sell a business. When you're the owner of a business and you understand this, you're always thinking about, payroll and threats and
Oh yeah.
regulation and supply, and like
Oh yeah.
everybody's just trying to grab at your margin and you're trying to fight back from it, and you're thinking you're just in the game and you're so focused on it. And then all of a sudden, the moment you sell your business, it was New Year's Day. They decided to push the close from like November to the first.
Yep.
And we were on a ski trip in December, and all the documents come in. So I took my whole family and we go down to like a Kinko's, and there's 80 signature pages that
Yeah.
have to be notarized. So we're sitting in a Kinko's with a notary, and
Yeah.
we're doing all that. We send the stuff back, we finish our ski trip, and then January 1st, like we all wake up and we get on a call. There's like 27 people on the call, and they're all going around, are you signed off? Are you signed off? Are you signed off? Are you signed off? And then, you go through that whole thing, and nobody asked me a question, and everyone said, thanks, goodbye, happy new year. And they hung up. I'm just, the family's like, is that it? And I'm like, I think that's it.
Like, did
And
the wire hit?
yeah.
What?
And then on the second,
Yeah.
the wire hits the bank,
Yeah.
and you're looking at this and you're like, well, that's everything you ever dreamed of when you start a business is, having resources that, are far in excess of anything that you'll ever need or everything that you ever had. And that creates a real problem for a lot of people. Like it
Yeah.
really, because
Yeah, because
all of the
money's the
stress
goal,
and
right? Everything you'd be
well,
chasing is making more money, right? At a certain,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
and then it's
And
not a, it's like a hierarchy of needs thing, and now you don't need that anymore.
that's right. Yeah, it's a real problem. Like it's a high class problem,
Yeah.
but for a lot of people, I've heard story after story of people that got $50 million and 5 years later, like they're broke because they don't have the discipline to, not go out and buy 4 boats they don't need, and 5 houses they don't need, and all this, all of this other stuff. So it was an interesting time, but I think we did it as well as we could have at the time, and we really used it to what I believe is can drive deeper into my purpose. That was the advice that I got was,
Yep.
whatever you decide to do, resist the urge to just do it bigger, better, and faster. And whatever decision you make on where you spend your time and your energy, make sure it drives you deeper into your purpose. So doing a little bit of work about what really matters, taking a little bit of time to do that is important, and then really making sure that you're mindful and thoughtful about what you do with those resources, and you think a little bit more long term.
So if money was not the, you know, not the driving force anymore, so you sell this thing, get this big payday. What then is now, like, what is your driving force now that you're fired up every day to go and do?
Yeah, so I mean, if you remember where we were in 2020, we're in this election cycle.
Yep.
We got a lot of things happening in the country that haven't happened probably since the 60s. And I looked at it, and I also noticed that there was an acceleration of really rich people getting a lot richer, and there was also an
Yep.
acceleration of poor people or people with less resources not being able to keep up with the economy. So we have this shrinking middle class. And I don't know what kind of history buff you are, but if you go around the world and you see when middle classes disappear, that's a problem. Like it destabilizes the entire country. So we're 60% of our country of our GDP is small business. A smaller percentage of that is franchising.
Yep.
But franchising is the mechanism that I have. I didn't want to just go away at 50 and take all my battle scars and all my lessons learned and not use that and then take it to a golf course or take it to a fishing boat. To me, that would be wasteful. And so what I wanted to do is take everything that we learned and really, you know, create a very intentional type business opportunity for people so that they could create generational wealth on Main Street USA, financial security for their families. What's happened since then with inflation, interest rates right now, businesses, homes, the escalation of home prices. I think it's criminal that kids can't buy a starter home for less than $400,000. I mean, I don't know how many. I mean, I bought my first homes. I can't tell you how many houses I bought from between 60 and 120 grand, like tons of them
Yep.
through the years. And that was a big part of me being able to build wealth and build equity. And, It's so business today, small businesses, franchise businesses are a high class asset,
Yep.
and people
And
really need to consider.
we can protect against inflation, right? As a business owner, like
Yeah,
we can raise our prices. Um, it's the consumer that
yeah,
feels it, but as a business owner, like we have mechanisms to, and we can get cheap debt, we can fix it, right? And then so as costs rise, like our at least our debt stays the same, and it dilutes the value of it. Um,
yeah.
so
Yeah,
a lot of
and
ways
then
to
and then
protect.
just other. We're passionate. I coached over 30 seasons of my kids' sports. When I came off the road, decided to franchise the business, because the reason I franchised, actually committed to it, was I was out of town all the time. I had 3 kids and I wasn't
Yep.
home. I'm flying all over the world, and I said, if I franchise this, I'll be able to honor the obligations that I've made there. So. We're partnered with Ben and Candy Carson Scholars. We're building reading rooms across the country. And that's important because we're going into these Title I schools or other underserved schools, and we're putting reading
Yep.
rooms with books in there. And then we also support through Operation Homefront our veterans. We're about 60% of where we need to be for our volunteer services. It's not as fashionable anymore. Patriotism's way down. So we support transitioning U.S. veterans. So like I have to have a cause and a purpose,
Yep.
because I just can't look at a spreadsheet and say, oh, now I have more money. Like I'm not
Yeah.
wired that way.
That's awesome.
But you need those people in the business.
So we sell in 2019, and then when do you start, or when do you have this idea of, hey, we want to, I'm going to climb a second mountain, we're going to start Homefront Brands, um, like walk me through that.
So I got involved in some servicing organizations. I made investor advisor in other brands. Really supported Thrive More Brands, which is a health and wellness platform with Rockbox Fitness and Beam Light Sauna in it.
Yep.
Beam's a fast growing company, great concept right now. We're just really taking advantage of this infrared space. Got involved in that. But then about 2020, 2021, my brother, who was the CFO of the Carolina Panthers, he led the sale from the Richardson family to the Tepper Group, $2.35 billion. And I recruited him back in to help me run our family office, and then recruited my son in, who was a sell side advisory guy, to do our M&A and some of our risk stuff. He leads our development now. He's done a great job with it. And we said, all of the education training. I mean, I was doing 3-day seminars for emerging franchisors, and I was giving them everything that they needed to build a great franchise company in a box, and I wasn't getting paid nearly enough for the value that we were creating for these other people, which was fine. I never worry about that. The universe doesn't conspire to make us wealthy, but the universe does penalize you and reward you for the deeds that you do. And so I didn't mind it. And we want people. We are concerned about the reach and relevance of franchising. So if we can pour into good brands early and help them get on the right track. But everything that we were doing, I was tying back to property services. This durable. You're not limited by the size of a location or how many seats you have in a restaurant. We're going to have 100 million more people in this country in by 2050. There's a shortage of housing inventory. The
Yep.
building materials are more granular. There's increased migration. So all of this says that property services is going to continue to be something where you can have compound annual growth rate. And if you continue to wow customers and get them to come back and bring their friends, that you will build a great business. So we came up with this concept of Homefront Brands, and there's 3 or 4 things that we said, if we're going to do this, and we're going to build if we were going to build a 100-year brand, and we were going to get people to commit for 10 years to do it, what would be the things that we would have to have the courage to invest in before revenue for us to be comfortable growing it quickly?
Yep.
And so those are the things that we really looked at, and that was the plan that we embarked upon.
What were those things?
Number one, we knew that we wanted a smaller number of large franchisees.
Okay.
First Service Corporation, probably mine, your multi-unit owner. We wanted to build a business that, that people could that we would attract a caliber of owner that wanted to make a bigger investment, build a dynasty within the Homefront, one or more of our brands. So number one, we had to have conforming brands for that. So, we need brands that have multi-million-dollar AUVs. I mean,
Yep.
there's
To
great
attract
businesses.
high
There's
quality.
great
Yep.
businesses. If you want to go and repair upholstery at car dealers out of the back of your hatchback, like that's a franchise. You can do it, but it's not going to attract,
Yep.
you
It's not gonna
know,
attract me.
100.
I'm not gonna
Yeah,
buy into
it's not
that.
going to attract you. I mean, we need something that's two,
Yeah.
3, 4, 5 million, $10 million.
Yeah.
That's going to get somebody like you to be invested in it. We knew that we knew we needed leadership. So we went out, and I mean, our C-suite is all multi-brand, multi-billion-dollar C-suite executives. I mean, Meineke, Service Master, our president of franchising, has led 4 multi-billion-dollar companies across 4 continents. 37 years in franchising. He's an Aussie, really an international, great leader in brand building. Hertz, Pods, the NFL. I mean, our C-suite, and then the next level down, same thing. So people was a big piece of it. We had to go out and recruit the people and sell them on the vision, because they know what it looks like when it's built. So we wouldn't has these fits and starts.
Yep.
That would, what the point is, we wanted our franchisees to avoid switching cost, meaning emerging brands, a lot of times they do systems that are just enough, and then they outgrow them, and then they completely inconvenience the franchisees.
Yep.
Because
Now
they
we
have
have a
to
new
rip
point of
everything out and
sale.
start
Now
over.
we have this new thing. Now we have this new
Yeah.
thing, because it's constantly evolving, and it's
Yeah.
it's changing as the business evolves, right?
Yeah. So we had to build scale. Like, for example, we're a Microsoft shop. We invested millions of dollars in it. We're a 2024 Microsoft small and medium business partner for their Copilot rollout this year. That's how much we've invested. That's how much we're adopting their
What's
AI.
Copilot?
It's Microsoft's AI technology.
Okay.
So it's a large language model, but it just runs around inside of our organization largely. So it can, it's really interesting.
Is that built on OpenAI? Is that part of that acquisition, or?
I don't know that.
Okay. They bought controlling interest in OpenAI,
They did.
and I'm sure that's like part of it was probably for.
Yeah. So people, brands, technology were 3 things that we knew we needed to get right. We needed to be able to, from a data perspective, we wanted insights. So we already have dashboards that are within each of our brands that are radically transparent, even down to the chart of accounts level. So franchisees come in and they see everybody's numbers within their brand. And if you're not comfortable
full P&Ls?
with yeah. I mean, well, yeah. All of the margin, all of the key margins and all that kind of stuff, we pull it in from the accounting system. So if you're not comfortable with radical transparency, then, this isn't really a good place for you. And then that also allows us, to do a lot of automation inside of the platform. But like when you first start a business, it's kind of the big gross numbers. What's your percentage of labor? What's your percentage of this, your marketing dollars and all of that? But as time goes on, it's the incremental 50 basis points or 1% here. So when they come to you from your franchisor and they say, here's a way that we're going to save you, 750, 75% of a point on supply, like that's meaningful. And so constantly finding ways for franchisees to make more money, but giving them the insights and the data so that they can see the results when the levers are pulled. And then also the relativity across the franchisees to give them an honest look at, like, where are they with their closing percentage versus their peers. And, so now we can sit on the same side of the table with the franchisees and just look objectively at the charts, as opposed to sit across from them and try to convince them of things when the data's insufficient.
Do you ever get pushback from that? From franchisees wanting to share information?
No, people are
because
always
they're coming in prepared for it. Okay, because years ago, quick story. So, Midas, years ago, we have to submit P&Ls. We all do it, right? Every franchisor requires it. And they tried to roll out QVinci or whatever. It's a software that like pulls basically information out of people's QuickBooks and then like consolidates its rankings, all the stuff you just talked about. And there was a lot of pushback from people at the time, like saying, well, like, I don't know if I want to give all that stuff. Like, I don't know if I want, like, with all these different fears that, none of them were true. It was all just stuff in their heads. But like, there was a lot of pushback, and then they ended up dropping the project because it just wasn't worth the fight to them. Plus, like, everybody uses different systems, and like, how do you categorize different expenses? And we get to like payroll, like there's a whole bunch of family on the payroll. Like, how do you get true, honest numbers? And like, it became a difficult thing because of the inconsistencies of how people operate as well. So
That's a great example, and that's exactly what our experience had told us. So we knew that people are usually fine as long as they know where they
yep,
stand,
it's the
and whatever they bought
expectations.
into
Yep.
is what they expect is what happens. So we knew that we had to have the systems and the policies and the practices kind of set. We knew where we wanted to end up, because if you look at the multi-billion-dollar brands, or you look at even, man, I was on a panel with uh, the guy who really built Hand and Stone, and I mean, he's like he goes, I have a ticker, every number, every sale rolls in real time to my dashboard, and everybody sees it,
Yep.
and that was really behind a lot of their growth. So, but you can't implement it into a legacy system, because people are like,
Yeah.
I don't want them to see what I'm doing, or
Yep.
I
Yep.
don't want people to know that I'm, because it shines the light. Like,
Yeah.
the noisiest people in the system are usually the lowest performing.
Yep. So then how do you, I mean, I struggle this as a business owner. We have a lot of data. So we use Microsoft, right? SQLs, like we pull in, it's all this custom stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's like you can get drowned in reports and all this data, right? And it becomes this like overwhelming. Then too many numbers means nothing, right? Versus like, we're trying to get better at this. So I guess I'm asking for advice too. It's like picking the few numbers that if you hit, right, everything else is okay. But like to eliminate all these others to get up to those key numbers is really hard, right? So like, I mean, for your perspective, sitting at the top, like what are the key numbers that you're looking at that if those are good, like you're okay with what's below them?
That's the art that's piled on top of the science, right? Because you can, um, and if you want to know what's really at the top of the house, like to answer your question directly, so I had uh, what Fred Reicheld on my podcast yesterday. He was he created the Net Promoter Score,
Yep. Yep. I'm familiar
Bain
with them.
executive Net Promoter Score, and I don't know how many times he can say, be customer centric so that they will come back and bring their friends. So at the top of the house, like, it's really Net Promoter Score,
Of your
and
franchisees or of your customers? Their
both.
customers.
Both. So we have, so we look at that from two levels. We Net Promoter Score our franchisees, and we ask for feedback every month. And because we're growing so fast, sometimes we get little eddies of things that aren't happening the way that they're supposed to, and our franchisees help us by bringing that to our attention immediately and saying, hey, this was my experience this month. I didn't get this call back. I didn't get this information. So then that allows us to like get all over it and be responsive, because at the end of the day, their satisfaction is a direct correlation to how successful we'll be, how fast, and then down to the unit level as well. So down to the customer level as well. So at the top of the house, like, our people. What's interesting, he shared that people are abusing the surveys and influencing them so much that they're meaningless. Meaning, when you get a survey, and if you have a technician in one of your locations, and they say, hey, you know what? You get $25 off if you answer this survey. And I
Mm.
really want you to, and I need you to know that a number 10 matters more than anything. Or the question 13 is the one I really need you to answer. They've just ruined the
Yep.
validation of that survey because they've influenced it. And when you look at things like Yelp, and you look at some of these other aggregators, like the people, there's punitive damages for getting a bad review on some of these platforms. So people do anything to influence the outcome. And he said, where it's really going is the ability now with tools to measure true customer loyalty. Like, what is their spend doing? How many times are they coming back?
Yep.
How many times are they referring? And you should be able to have and the problem with disparate systems is that if you can't really measure that, then you really don't know. Like, the Net Promoter Score needs to be measured in spite of asking them.
Yep.
And
Through
then
their actual actions, right?
through
Which is,
their
do they come
actions and
back?
behaviors.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're working on digging out that in ours to look at our retention rate by store, retention rate by month, like looking at
That's
I mean,
right.
we're just tracking like, did they come in once or did they come in more than once, like over a 12-month period, and it rolls. And we can see by store, like some of them have higher retention rates, and some of them you can see like they're starting to go down, and like other ones are starting to go up, and uh, it compounds. And we spend so much money in marketing and all this stuff about how to have a good customer experience, but if they're not. Like, doesn't matter.
No. So here's what it's interesting. He has a book, Winning on Purpose, and he's like, chapter 5, he shares how he's invested in the stock market over the last 20 years. And he said, because I had insights into net promoter scores of all
Yeah,
these
yeah,
different companies through
yeah, yeah.
Bain, he goes, I only invested in companies that
And
had
high
the
net
highest net
promoters.
promoter
Yeah.
scores. And he's tripled his return in the market, the S&P return, average return in the marketplace. So at the top of the house, it's really
Yeah.
like, can you build that's the top of the house. So
Awesome.
everything leads up to that.
So Homefront Brands, you started. What was the first brand that you guys let off with?
um, we bought a brand called Labor Pains, and it was an exterior house washing and window cleaning company.
Okay.
And what do you think of that name, Brian?
Yeah, it's not great. Labor pains. Yep. You're pained. You're pained after doing it.
But it was so personal to the founders
Yeah.
because they had an experience with miscarriages, and he had and it's a great story, and we do look for this, like, who is the founder? It
Yep.
matters a lot. He went deaf, and he ended up losing his first job out of college, and he they were trying to raise a family, and they kept having these miscarriages, so like the only way he could feed his family was to go down the block and offer to clean people's windows, and this was back in the early 2000s. And so they named it Labor Pains. He got it to a franchise, he got it to 13 locations, and but they were kind of stuck there. And he had been in the business for 18 years, or no, at the time was 21, the end of 21, almost 22. So 12 years, or trying to, well, I don't know, what's the math, 14, 15, 16 years. And so that was the first one that we acquired, and then we rebranded that one Window Hero.
Yep.
And we're really modernizing that business. Really excited. We've got some product line extensions coming out, and we've got some really cool technology coming out that's going to allow us to really expand our services, pushing harder into commercial, things like that. So it's going to be it was kind of a squeegee and pressure washer business
Yep.
looking backwards, but going forward, it's going to be like a super high tech, droney, ballistic film type business too, as well. So pushing deeper into commercial. So we're really excited about that brand. That was
Yeah.
the first
That's
one.
awesome.
Yeah.
What's your biggest brand? I know you got 4 here. I'll just read them off because you got household, or not household, Window Heroes, Top Rail Fence, Designery, Temporary Wall Systems, and Yard Patrol Pros.
Yes.
Um,
So by number of franchisees, it's Temporary Wall,
okay.
and that's a B2B temporary containment business. Really, really great market opportunity there for people to get in and educate the market. We're first to market as a
Yeah.
franchisor, and really not. I mean, there's other companies that are doing it, but it's not. It's a brand new emerging space. So we're getting great traction inside of it. We got really sophisticated owners in that brand. And basically, you go in anywhere there's a construction project going on, and it's a sustainable offering. It's a
It's an
you can
asset
install it really.
based
It's asset based. It's
franchise.
a
Yep.
rental business. It's low employees, super duper high margins. If you look at the item 19, and then now we've got some product line extensions coming out inside of that to be able to continue to get more revenue, more get into different wallets with the franchise, with the
The
clients.
contractors or whoever's.
Yeah, and then probably our and you have to get into the revenue cycle with that. There's a buying cycle that you have to get into when you're looking at projects.
And that one's a
like
little
that.
different too, because all your other ones are B2C in the homes.
That's
That
right.
one's 100% B2B. I mean, it's a different type of franchisee. They got to be outbound. They got to be like a relationship. It's not as much digital marketing, right? Do you
Yeah.
find that do you like having that mix? Like that's completely different, like from an operations standpoint? Is it it's a completely different type of business to run than all the other ones are kind of probably have a similar playbook, right? Of how you get customers and how you
Yeah.
service them and hire employees and pay them and all that.
I personally do like it because my previous brand, we had a
Was
very
B2B.
deep
I mean, restoration,
competency
it's
in.
B2B.
Yeah, we had a deep competency in hospitals, institutions, military bases. So like our commercial services group was very robust. And so we have an understanding of that marketplace, how people buy, who the consumers are. If you were a residential guy and you tried to get into it without our 3 decades of experience, you'd probably feel differently.
Yep.
So I think we've been able to be a really good franchisor in that space, and
And is
put
that
people
something
over.
you vet people for, like getting into that they're super comfortable in that B2B, like whether they have experience or they just naturally seem like they'd be a good fit, like whether they're in enterprise sales or software
Yes,
or whatever.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Like it's a different environment selling in those environments. So if we can get people that have been in adjacencies, then they typically can move right over into it relatively quickly.
Yep. That's awesome. And then what I know Top Rail, the fencing company, is probably, I mean, that's one I'm most aware of. I think it's a really strong model. Can you speak a little bit about that one?
Yeah, fast. I mean, really, speed to market there. Really good fencing model. It's residential fencing, commercial, agricultural. We're pushing heavy into commercial there. There's some, really nice commercial opportunities that are landing across the network there. And it's a subcontractor model, so it's pretty asset light in the way that we've got it set up. Not to say that the business won't evolve as these locations, scale up, and they are scaling up very fast. So we're, that one's going good. And then the designery is, we have a massive slew of openings in the designery. So it's our one business that has a physical retail location,
Okay.
small footprint, very inexpensive. Doesn't have to be class A space. It can be class B or
Yeah, it's
class
like the
C.
showroom. Yeah.
Yeah,
People willing
but
to
it's
drive.
but
Yep.
it's kind of more like an Apple store than a showroom. It's really small, high technology. We have a call center. We centralize everything, so we have teledesign inside of that. So we have franchisees that are trading revenue even before their stores get open, because we
For
have a
digital.
teledesign service, so they can get a sales kit, go out and start, building their community referral type business, get on estimates. We can help them produce the estimates and fulfill the work before they even do it. So
So they're designer and like GC, as it's kitchen, bath, closets,
kitchens,
remodels.
bath,
I assume
closets.
it's all subbed out, and they're kind of helping design it, and then they'll also helping making sure like delivery is sufficient.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah. Subcontracted installation crews. We actually have a centralized plant that's centralized because that's what centralized means. We
For materials,
Yeah, no, we actually assemble for them. So
so you'll ship it,
we
like you'll ship the cabinets or whatever
we ship the
assembled.
cabinets to the jobs fully assembled, ready to go. So when they order them and they order it, we have all the flat packed material. So we're basically a kind of a upper middle quality at a very very value based price. So it's a really appeals broadly, even to apartment buildings, condominiums,
Okay.
construction. And it's a really good option for general contractors. So we're very general contractor friendly in that business. So we do all the assembly at a centralized plant and ship them directly to the jobs on behalf of the franchisees. So really, again,
So you get the cost savings of like, I mean, I put cabinets together years ago. Like they mail them, it's all flat
yeah,
things. You put them all together, like it's way cheaper, for shipping and all the
yeah,
reasons. So you
yeah.
kind of help people in that.
Yeah, it's a higher end look and feel. I mean, it's
Yeah.
really built well. But look, franchising, you can't give people jet airplanes. Like the businesses have to be simple enough that the
Yep.
majority of the people that get into it can be successful. So in all of our businesses, we really want to keep. I mean, we don't load them up with costs in the beginning. We don't load them up with inventory. We don't load them up as they're getting their feet underneath them and they're penetrating the market, which takes time to do. You got to go
Yep.
out into these communities and be known for this, build an audience, build a brand, build relationships. As all the marketing is getting going. So, we're very cognizant to not create a burn rate for people where, if it takes them a little bit longer or they're transitioning out of a job or whatever it is, that, we try to keep people as safe as possible. And then the businesses, what they need to execute on needs to be clear, and it needs to be something, and they need to be
Yep.
probably. So our highest rated thing that we do, which I would not have predicted, but our president Michael O'Driscoll had the vision on this, it's our learning management systems.
Yep.
Like we invested
Yep.
heavily for the last 2 years in learning management, and it's a 9.7, 9.8 out of 10 rated by the franchisees. It's very comprehensive. It's very robust. They can put people in it that they hire. And, so, getting their attention and then getting them between these guardrails early so that they're creating the great habits and they're not wasting time, energy, and money is really key, because our number one mantra is, if you start well, it will go well. I've very rarely seen something that
Yep.
doesn't start well and then miraculously goes well. So all of our focus and all of our attention and what we talk to them about is everything that they need to do to start well. And if we can do that, then it will go well for them.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, one of the big things I talk about, and the value of franchising, right, is you have training, you support that, like, you can turn decades of information into days of training, and you have to do that through experience and through systems, but then also have a really good system to actually like get all this knowledge that you guys have into people's brains. And the LMS is part of it, in-person training part of it, onboarding, right, or the ongoing training like it. There's so many layers because people learn at different levels and at different speeds, and like the best franchises attack it from every single angle.
Yeah.
And it's digital and it's modern. It's not like, here's this, like, we're going to mail you this 300-page book that you're never going to read, which many do. So
that's right. The matrix doesn't exist. We can't plug into the back of their necks.
Not yet.
And or Brian, maybe it does.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. We don't know.
We
Elon's working on it.
We wouldn't know.
That's right. That's right. We would not know.
We are living in a simulation. I do believe.
So what's in 5 years from now, or 10 years, if you pick the timeline, what does Homefront Brands look like, and how's it looking like? How's it different than today?
So, we're continuing to filter through brands that come to us that want to join the platform. We have very specific requirements about what that needs to look like, but we will add brands. And anytime we can catch lightning in a bottle, where there's an emerging market, there's some sort of legislation, there's some shift that creates a riff where franchising can run into it and fill it with a service or a product. We look for those types of things. Of course, they do have to be perpetual, and it can't be a flash in the pan, something that's going to go here. I say you'll never find a Homefront brand stuck between a Curves and a Blockbuster. These are durable businesses. These are forever businesses. These are something that if people choose to, they can create their generational wealth inside of it, much like you have with your your growing franchise businesses that you have. And we're all privately funded, so we have a family feel here. We don't go to the contract. We think we can maintain that. I mean, look,
you're self-funded through your own, you're your own private equity company, so you're making your own decisions. And
yeah. I mean, we're family office funded, so we don't have to make decisions based on the quarter. We can make decisions based on the long term. So if something's not right and we need to put money into it, and it permanently impairs our plan for this year, but it's the right thing to do, then we can make that decision. If we have hard constraints on numbers we have to hit, then you can't make that decision. So we like it where it is, because it's not about you don't want to just build bigness. You want to build greatness. You need to prioritize building greatness over bigness. And if you build greatness, then the bigness comes. So again, not to overemphasize it, but we are extraordinarily focused on the net promoter thing. I mean, it's just like, that is everything. If you look at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, or in our industry, First Service, I mean, like, their performance very quietly over 2 decades has been incredible. 20% shareholder growth year over year. Charlie Chase is a great leader. Their brands are good, stable. People, their executives stay. Their franchisees are large. It's a commercial for them. But look, I mean, and they're the type of people that pour back into the industry. Charlie's led the IFA and all of that. So, if we looked at anybody that we aspired to be the most like, it would probably be them. So we'll, and there's a lot of great franchisors out there. And I think as long as people do it well, then, we don't have any problem, competing with them or even helping them.
Yep. It's awesome. Cool. Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. If people want to learn more about you, where can they find you? I know you have a book out. To tell the audience where they can find you.
Yeah, so LinkedIn is a great place to connect up with me personally. You can find our episode of Undercover Boss if you've got 42 minutes of your life you want to never get back. There's a free link on my LinkedIn. Just go to Jeff Dudan on LinkedIn there. Homefrontbrands.com is the gateway to all things. You can find our podcast on the Homefront with Jeff Dudan there. Man, we're top 40 on Apple for entrepreneurship. I think we're over 60 episodes out there now, and
It's awesome.
it's not all about franchising. It's really for entrepreneurs and people that are curious about business and things like that. Instagram, we're there as well. But, homefrontbrands.com is the place to start. Or just Google me and reach out to me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. And if you want the book Discernment, the Business Athlete's Regimen for a Great Life Through Better Decisions, which will goes through my journey, give you models of thought, how to use your values as decision filters, and really the people that have picked it up that are at the right place in their life have really highlighted something on every other page. So you can get that on Amazon. Send them, 12, $14. They'll send me 11 cents. And
There you go.
but then you'll have it. So there
Yep.
you go.
It's worth more than $14. So it's a
Yeah.
life
And
of lessons, right?
if you sneak across my social media, you can actually get the book for free if you give us your email address. So you can go to my Instagram, Jeff Dudan, and if you want a free copy of the book electronically, you can click a link in the bio and fill it out. You'll get one there.
It's awesome. Cool. I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. And I'm excited to watch you guys and grow and all the great things you're doing in franchising.
Appreciate you, Brian. And congratulations on all your success. You're everywhere, and it looks really good from where we're sitting.
Awesome. Thanks.